But let me start out with trying to generate a little interest in why we should care about these threats of insurgency and terrorism. And I think there's a couple main reasons. Certainly there's a human cost to insurgency and terrorism. Think of human security. If you look at some statistics by James Fearon and David Layton in their seminal piece in 2003, Ethnicity, Insurgency, and Civil War, in the last half of the last century, since World War II, over 3 million direct battle deaths related to insurgencies and civil wars, and probably 16 million plus due to these wars in indirect costs. When you think of weapons of mass destruction, what do you think of? What's WMD, Ryan?
Nuclear weapons.
Lumpy.
Missiles.
How many people have been killed by nuclear weapons lately? I would argue in today's fight, the real weapons of mass destruction are bayonets, machetes, those types of weapons, the weapons of insurgents, and we need to take those seriously. So certainly from a human security perspective, we need to care about insurgency and certainly terrorism. It's killing a lot of people. Do we have any cold, calculating, hardcore realists here from any international relations folks? I would argue, even if you're an uncaring person that doesn't care about the human costs, you need to care about the threats to national security. I used to teach international relations at West Point, and that's my background. And we were taught in classic international relations theory that the big states need to care about the other big states. They're the states that have the natural resources, the huge militaries, the nuclear weapons. So you think about states and anarchy, the big black boxes caring about the other big black boxes, right? Well, we've kind of turned international relations theory on its head, where now the big states have to worry about the weak states. Sometimes the biggest threats to national security and international security are emanating from these weak states, where there's not much governance, where there's ungoverned spaces, where the threats of terrorism and proliferation and those types of things can exist. Doesn't mean we can afford to take our eye off the ball. We need to care about other big states with nuclear weapons, but now we need to care about the Somalias, the weak states, where the states that brought us 9/11, where it wasn't our peer competitors or rising powers, it was these weak states where poor governance created the conditions for these threats to develop. So we need to care about insurgency and certainly terrorism because those are the types of activities that keep states weak, that challenge governance. And if you want to bring good governance to these areas, you're oftentimes going to be required to address these types of insurgent threats that exist there and perpetuate the weak governance that exists. So let's talk, let me kind of frame this with a couple quotes here. One by Sun Tzu, you may have heard of him, and he said that if you know your enemies and know yourself, you will not be imperiled in 100 battles. So we're talking about how to approach these threats. I think it's still relevant to look back on some of these great thinkers. The next one is a little bit more recently, Karl von Clausewitz, and he said, the first, the supreme, the most far-reaching act of judgment that the statesman and commander have to make is to establish the kind of war on which they are embarking. Know your enemy, know the kind of war you're in. Okay, that's a challenge in today's threat environment. We're trying to combat insurgency and terrorism. We need to understand who we're fighting and the kind of fight we're in, and that is a lot more difficult now, I would argue, than Douglas MacArthur's era back in the previous century. Let's go to knowing the enemy. What kind of people participate in insurgency and terrorism? Well, what makes them sign up and join and participate in these types of groups? You look at this slide, is it poverty? Is it really all about is insurgency and terrorism just a symptom of a much deeper underlying cause, poverty? Maybe if these individuals had a better option, other opportunities, they wouldn't choose to participate in insurgent groups or in terrorist groups. Anyone buy that? Does that resonate maybe a little bit? Could it be religious fervor? Maybe individuals think that their religion's under attack and their only recourse is to stand up and fight for it. Others might think, hey, insurgency terrorism pays. There's profit to be made. You think about insurgents and terrorists in Colombia or in southern Afghanistan, where there's the drug trade, for example, or in Africa with minerals and precious stones. So insurgency and terrorism can pay. So there's a lot of reasons people join and participate in these groups, and this presents interesting challenges for the counterinsurgent and the counter-terrorist. So knowing the enemy is tough. It's a variety of different motives that attract people into these organizations. Next slide. What kind of war are we in? What would Clausewitz say the type of fight we're in right now? And you look at this slide. You've got the option of, I would say, draining the swamps. Maybe providing for some of the needs of the population that are at risk. Maybe raise the opportunity cost for them for participating in terrorism and insurgency. Or do you kill mosquitoes? On the other hand, is it put the proverbial warhead on a forehead and select these individuals out off the map? Pardon me for being a little crass, but left hand, right hand, we've called it. And I would say the answer is both. You need some combination of reducing incentives and raising costs to participate in insurgency and terrorism. And the right mix is going to be dynamic calculation that's going to vary across space and over time. When I was in Afghanistan during my last tour, certainly the challenges they were facing in the north were different than the south and the east. And I could go visit a village one day, come back a month later, and it's a very, very different type of challenge. So you need to vary those prescriptions as far as the left-hand, the right-hand efforts, the reducing incentives and raising costs. And that's the essence of the challenge of counterinsurgency and even counterterrorism to a large degree.